Hi, thanks for having me here. So I wear a lot of hats. I'm a metal worker, I'm an artist, I'm a photographer, I've been a healthcare worker, I've been a social worker, I've been a teacher, I'm a maker, power engineer. So I do a lot of things, but in particular today I'm going to focus on one project I just did, which was the Temple of Flux. And essentially it was 5 mountains that we had to make in 4 months. So that temple roughly is 40 feet high. It's 200 feet long and 100 feet in depth. And this is out at the Burning Man Arts Festival, which happens right before Labor Day every year. Does everybody, who knows about that? Okay. Yeah, it's a big art festival in the desert. In particular, there's a big project that happens every year, and it's called the Temple. And so last year, the Temple was given to myself and another colleague of mine, Rebecca Anders. And we decided we wanted to do the project. So we went ahead, but we realized it was going to be a big, big process. This is the desert where we created on. So the Temple was started by an artist, David Best, and these are an example of some of his temples. It's a wonderful tradition that's happened out there. It's a great, everybody gets to interact with the temple. You can leave objects and memories. It's meant as a place for memorial and remembrance. David Best at one point said he didn't want to make it anymore, so he offered up the temple project to other artists. And you're seeing some of the other examples. You're seeing shrines. You're seeing Mark Greaves' temples, the 2 corner temples. And then this is David Olmus and his wife Mary Lee's temple from the year before we did it. And here's some examples of what people leave at the temple. You can write on it. You can leave pictures. It's meant as a way for, if you've had loss or if you've experienced something frustrating in your life, it's a way for you to leave it and let it go. And so this is some of the example of what was left on our temple. And what we did is we wanted to play with the idea of what temple meant. For us, we wanted to expand the idea of temple to also be about community and connecting with the environment. So we decided to ask nature and the surrounding desert for a little inspiration. And so we decided to do 5 mountains or sand dunes that rose from the desert floor to create a place. So to create that temple from these mountains. And this is one of the original sketches. And this is where we start playing with many levels of engineering, drawing, physical drawing. We're also playing with design, also environmental installation. So not only are we drawing on paper, we're also looking at nature and things to inspire us. So these are the slot canyons that we really look to for some of our design and how light came through. We also looked at religious sites and things that would inspire us. This is the Wailing Wall. And also other memorials that really inspired us and spoke to us about what memorials we wanted to put out there for people to become involved in. This is the Holocaust Memorial in D.C. as well, the Vietnam War Memorial. This is the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin. And we really like these memorials that felt intimate, like you could, relate to it, but they also felt vast, and they were part of a whole field of something. And again, the Berlin Holocaust Memorial and the Vietnam War Memorial. We also wanted the idea of the oculus, or looking up and seeing something greater about yourself. So we looked at buildings like the Parthenon. This is a temple in France. We also looked at other buildings that inspired us. This is from the Ice Festival in China. We also looked at other artists. This is a group of Belgium artists that created a piece called Uchronia. This was out at Burning Man. We also looked at artists like Andy Goldsworthy, and we were inspired by him, how he integrated himself into nature and responded back to it. We also looked at artists like Ruth Azawa and how she integrated systems and brought in architecture into her work. These are an example of some of her natural, nature-inspired pieces. Ruth is also a local artist, so I like her work a lot. We also looked at artists like Richard Serra and his metalwork. We also looked at Superman and his ice castle. So we got inspiration from everywhere. This is the very first sketch of the temple. And it's just kind of fun to look back on where this little sketch, this little model, and those people were able to build this together. We had 4 months to do this. And so a key component in what I do and all the work I do is collaboration. The reason that I can dream up a little sketch on a piece of paper is because I don't expect that I can do it all myself. And this is what I like to share with other people. You don't necessarily have to know how to work with wood. I mean, if you would have asked me like a year ago, are you a woodworker? I would have said no. I've worked with wood, but I know that I have the ability to do it. I just need to learn the process. And I always like to share that with everybody that I work with. I work with girls in metal, and a lot of times girls aren't given the opportunity to work with metal, and sometimes they're scared to work with power tools and stuff like that. And I like to tell them, I just need your enthusiasm. I can teach you the rest. And I think that's an important thing about being a maker, is you don't necessarily have to have any of these tools. You don't have to know how to use a saw. You don't have to use a drill. There's opportunities, especially here today, that you can go and do that. People are here to show you these. So I like to call myself fundamentally a collaborative artist. And this is one of my key collaborative partners, who's not here today because she's in the shop with the rest of the crew building our new piece. This is Rebecca Anders. And this is another key partner. This is us watching our temple burn. And this is myself, Rebecca Anders, and Peter Kimmelman. He's the artist and architect that came on for the project. These are some of our amazing builders. And these are some of the other amazing women who helped build the temple. Here we are, day and night, working on our temple. And when approaching this, I always like to think that somebody else has solved the problem for me. I don't necessarily have to know how to make the mountain. I have to know how to look out in the world for mechanisms and ways to help me know how to design my mountains. So we looked out in the world, and what are systems for making curved things, big, tall, triangular things? What are systems that are already out there? Well, 1, skateboard ramp design. 2, wooden roller coaster design. So these are the fundamental aspects of what helped us and inspired us to create our design and our structural design for our temple. So I'm going to go into a little bit the process of how we created this temple. It's kind of interesting and fun how we took wood and turned it into mountains. So this was the basis of how we engineered it. This is what you're seeing right now are all the structural pieces of our temple going up. So you can kind of see how we sort of took that and applied it to this. And so you can see a little bit the cross bracing. This is right before we're about to put the face on it. So we created the structure by looking at skateboard ramp design and wooden roller coasters. And then we had to start kind of looking at how do we take that and put a facing on it to make it look like a mountain. So first of all, we started looking at geology and how it's layered and how it's stratified. But how do you take plywood and really develop that into something? Well, you make some models. You make computer models. You place them out there. So we worked with an artist, Ed Henry. You lay this all out and figure out how many of those frames you need to build. You lay out each frame. You build each frame. You put it up, you practice, you figure out how you're doing this. This is in our studio last year. And then you package up all the frames. And one thing you got to remember along the way, you got to have fun. So along with all that work and all that planning, a big part of it is remembering the people who are involved. So you got to make it awesome. And you got to have fun. So, okay, how do we make plywood look like geology? Well, what we did is we created a palette for it. So these are how we broke up the plywood. We broke it up into big chunks you can see on the top. And then we create these things called thatches. So we kind of cut it up into small strips, make little thatches, and these are kind of the fillers. And you talk to your 3D artist, he kind of lays it out for you, and then you start practicing on the real thing. And we also would teach class. We would teach cladding class, and so this is the process by how we showed people how to do it. So you start with your base. You start adding kind of the framework on top. You add how the big sort of chunks of igneous rock, the big chunks of granite would go in. You put a little bit more on the top to frame it. Start putting those big chunks in. You start putting the little pieces on top, and you work your way down. And you start having something that doesn't look like plywood or wood anymore. And so that's how you start making the temple. You cut a lot of wood, and you work together. You do a lot of calculations. You remember what you were inspired by. And then this is kind of the result of all of that work. And then once you've practiced and you've done it all in your studio, now you're ready to install it on the desert. So you take 4 semis out to the desert. And remember, it's got to be awesome. Or now it's going to explode. So you remember to have fun. And then you start building it out in the desert. And this takes a volunteer crew of about 250 people. And this is our home for about 2.5 weeks. And you can see our little community out here and our temple in the center. And just remembering to have fun. We would eat meals together, a way to create community. Remember to have fun. And this is the result. This is the end result of our temple. We were inspired by the mountains around us, and hopefully it reflected in our design. This is what it looked like at night. And this is the community kind of space in the center of it. And these are some of the pieces that people left behind, because it was interesting with this piece, it wasn't mine. From the beginning to then, it was never mine. It was a present, and it was a gift I was giving to 50,000 people. And so people left memories and mementos and flags and all sorts of paintings and objects all over, and they were all there to let something go. And they left people, and they also forgave other people. And then the only way to release that or to let that go was to burn it. So here is the burning of our temple. But even though it was hard at some points to let something that big go, what was really exciting is this many people made that temple, and this many people thought of themselves as artists afterwards. And to me, that was the most important part. And what's exciting is we are continuing to make art together, and we have created something called the Flux Foundation. And it is a new way that we are approaching making public art and making it a public, accessible experience where anybody can come. You don't have to call yourself an artist. You don't have to consider yourself an artist. You just have to have enthusiasm. And so now, I am here today, but everybody's at the shop making a new piece called Brawley Flock, and it's a flock of renegade umbrellas on fire. So hopefully there will be more to come. Thank you.
Thank you.